Hello, everybody. Louis C. Gross II, Educational Director for Manhood Shelter Incorporated, or the acronym is MSI. I want to say thank you for letting us in your home, and I'm your brother for the whole community. We have a lot to discuss, and in the next 12 weeks we will get to it. We'll be working from 5 o'clock to 5:30 every Friday. And hopefully you'll become part of the family and deal with us. So I'd like to say, how are you to the African Americans? Como están ustedes to our Hispanic brothers? Allah be with you to our Arab brothers. And who else? Well, at any rate, we're saying hello to you. And we all want to be a part of what's going to happen in terms of this city. And also I have to deal with, every time we come on, we deal with the book of the week, some quotations, and what we're pushing is literacy. Did you know that 53% of this population is illiterate, which transfers into their children going to school? So if you don't feel as though reading is of any value to you, then that's transmitted to your child too. But first of all, I also want to say something to people. When you come up with the question, why me? The reason why I say that, why me, I asked that same question because I had contracted cancer and I was in denial, and a lot of people around me, didn't say anything, but they kind of figured that something was wrong. So I'm reaching out to the people who were going through that process that I went through to tell you that, look, you gotta be strong and you gotta deal with it. There are some side effects, like with my hands. See, that's that chemotherapy. But fortunately, I got through it. I'm clean right now in terms of the cancer. And I just want to say to the rest of my family that you too will ask the question, why me? But at the same time, you got to get over the grieving process and get busy living. You hear me? Get busy living. That means go to the doctor, take care of your business. I want to get that out to you because I see a lot of people, of all colors and races, coming through Stroger's Hospital, which is a good hospital, and they're really good with oncology. So I would really recommend that to you. And thank you, Dr. Adap and Dr. Ahmed, for saving my life. And so therefore, it becomes a question of what Dr. Carver said. No individual has the right to come into this world without a distinct and legitimate reason for passing through it. My purpose is to enlighten you and for us to come together and deal with the situations that we have to deal with. From not only the medical aspect, but also we must deal with what's happening in our communities and what's not happening in our communities. And that brings me to a couple of, another book that I read was The Spook Who Sat by the Door by Sam Greenleaf. I found it to be very interesting because it deals with the human condition. It also deals with prejudice and racism. There's another book I like too, called Satan in the Pulpit, talking about discount preachers. And the question is, why do more women go to church than men? So if you have a question or comment on that, you can get to it. But also I'd like to give you my email. Here it is. See? Manhood Shelter at yahoo.com. So if you have any questions or comments that you want to direct towards the organization, please send it to this. Okay? Thank you. Now, too bad. Okay. You had to bear with me. I want to touch on a couple of issues that is affecting us educationally speaking. One, the definition of racism. Too often people say, they equate prejudice with racism. Racism. Here you go. It says, a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Now, turn that to this, prejudice. An unfair feeling of dislike for a person or a group because of race, sex, religion, etc. A feeling of lack or dislike for someone or something, especially when it's not reasonable or logical. Okay? These two words play heavily in terms of education. When you look at Chicago, number one, it's supposed to be a diverse city. Don't get me wrong, I love Chicago. But sometimes we talk about the inhabitants in Chicago, and especially the political arena. Look where we're at in terms of educational speaking. Now, on the north side, education is totally different from the south side and the west side. They have more resources to work with. And when you take a political situation and impose it on educating our children, that is really terrible. That's really terrible. And to watch what happened for the past year, you know, it's unbelievable. I'm 70 years old. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then you have representation in terms of the aldermen, state representatives. Do you know they're making over $117,000 a year? But yet on 87th Street, Alderman Bill, from 95th Street to 87th Street, the roads are in shambles. People are losing the front ends of their cars because street sanitation came out, did a job, and left it just like it was. When do we have pride in what we do? Also, down the way, on 83rd, there's a vacant lot. Sawyer, please look into that to keep it clean. You know, I know that a lot of times we go to our, there's 50 wards, and we call or try and see them, and they're so busy. But at $117,000 a year, you have to take time out for your constituents. You really do. I have some solutions. I've written some proposals, and it seemed to go down the drain because, I don't know, the powers that be want it to be one way. But it's time for a change, people, in terms of educating our children. You know, we spend, for every child that doesn't come to school, it's $106 for a vacant seat. And that money transfers into personnel. For instance, you're a teacher that deals with special ed. Well, if the money's not there, hey, you have to get a substitute to deal with special ed. And it says in the IEP, that's the individual educational program, a plan, that we're dealing with special ed, has to be a certified instructor to deal with that. And so they're out of compliance when that doesn't happen. Also, young people, you need to know something about your child from 0 to 3. The district is mandated to have them checked for 4 areas: cognitive, physical. We put emotional in there, and social. But those as they're growing up. But we're looking for developmental delays, and if you can find them at the beginning, that helps in terms of utilizing information and techniques to address those issues. But if you don't know, and nobody's telling you, so I'm going to tell you. So be sure to look into that, because that's free. That's free. There's so many things about education and in the process that I see politicians get on stage and say the thing like, we got to protect our children. But one of my questions is, does your child go to one of these public schools? I'd ask that question from Mayor Emanuel. What school did your child go to? And I see you got up on TV and started crying when that young man got killed. But the question is, when did you know about the tape? Was it after the election or before the election? See, and then you got rid of McCarthy. You're always talking about, I'm talking about the mayor at this point. He's always talking about he makes critical decisions. Let's see about your critical decisions. One, $660 million went to police misconduct. Then $1.5 million went to ceasefire. Then $20 million went to scope. But you made the critical decision. As a matter of fact, I believe that McCarthy asked you not to even deal with ceasefire for $1.5 million, and the death toll was escalated. What I'm saying, sir, is that your critical decision making needs to be readdressed, and you need assistance, and you have to listen to other people. I think it was Einstein that said, the thinking that causes the problem won't be the thinking that solves the problem. Once again, the thinking that causes the problem won't be the thinking that solves the problem, sir. So, we're with you, but you have to change your ways and become more transparent. Just like when we had the process for a new superintendent, you went past who you had to deal with it and picked Eddie Johnson. Now, I don't knock Eddie Johnson, but what I'm saying, how much money did that cost to do that? That's some more millions that, that the taxpayer has to absorb in terms of money. When's enough enough? And then you got on TV and you cried and all that, And I kept thinking you was doing like that when you were crying. But perhaps you weren't, who knows? But please, we have to be more transparent. Another thing, tickets, that red light situation, it was a lot of people up for, dealing with corruption on that and have been indicted. And there was a no-bid contract on that. We do our homework. By the way, and let me transition into the governor. You came into our town and you said that our schools are like prisons. Well, you know what? You almost went to prison, didn't you? In terms of the nursing home fiasco. What kills me is that you get on stage and you say one thing, but you're doing another. That sounds like a hypocrite. You talk about reform and term limits. What about you dealing with your business? You taking that same mentality and bringing it to the state in terms of running the business the way you ran it, your previous business, which went into bankruptcy, and also you almost got indicted. Mentally ill patients, inmates, being put into nursing homes with people with Alzheimer's. That's so dangerous. So you're getting paid from the old folks and also getting paid from the state. Correct me if I'm wrong. And look what has happened to our educational process. In the midst of doing that, you got 50 principals leaving CPS. Good principals. So now what happens with that in terms of the educational process for the children? They go to school for 7.5 hours a day. We have to deal with classroom management. You have to deal also with academics versus behavior. And all this is overwhelming. And then you're dealing with a bureaucratic system that really, in a way, suppresses, the talents that one has, because they're always depressed about, if I do this way, that'll happen that way. This has to stop. And the only way we can do that, another issue, police misconduct. Do you know that it was $660 million that's been spent on police misconduct? And by the way, young people, you have to know that at one point in time you had 13,500 policemen before Emmanuel came in. Now you got about 12,000. So so our safety is at risk. You need to know that. And the training, I don't know, hey, man, what you do is take some keys and throw it in and say, hey, here's the gun, go to work. No. Did you see the other day when this officer kicked this boy in the face? Even behind all this going on, he kicks this boy in the face. But that just shows the mentality. Oh yeah, when we break down the police department, it's about 47% Caucasian, about 25% African American, and the rest is Hispanic, and maybe the other might be Chinese. So what I'm saying is that we need to attend to the business of attending to our business. And also it goes to taxation without representation. We got 50 aldermen, and you have to kiss their behind to even get an interview with them, and then try and catch them when they're in the office. What are you doing? Just like I told Bill, from 95th Street to 87th Street, we have a problem. We need to fix it in terms of street sanitation. Caller, question or comment?
Yeah, it's good to see you again, sir. Glad you're back on the air.
Thank you.
And looking at let's say it's a holiday weekend, and I think 15 people shot last night.
How many?
15.
15? Jesus. 15.
Now, I'm looking at this thing differently. In Chicago, there's 6 or 7 areas where all the violence and the shooting is occurring. About 6 or 7 geographic areas. The problem is, it's been those same 6 or 7 areas for the last 40 years.
Wow.
Now, we have marched, we have prayed,
right.
we have begged, we have pleaded. The problem is, due to the fact that there's an ingrained vein of racism in Chicago.
Yes.
I mean, can you imagine in the United States of America for 40 years, 6 or 7 areas has been plagued with violence, and we haven't done anything different to stop it? So it's my opinion that there's nothing different Chicago can do. We need to call in the federal government to come in, address these 6 or 7 areas, because what's happening with the violence is spreading out throughout the entire area, the entire city and the suburbs.
It is.
There's an ingrained vein of lawlessness that's gripping Chicago. So we need to have someone from the federal government, the federal guard, come in and at least keep the streets safe. Now, the federal guard was called in during Katrina. They didn't murder, mass shoot a group of people. The federal guard is called in all the time when there are natural disasters. We have a public health crisis that is actually worse than a natural disaster here in Chicago based on the body count. I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. And once again, good to see you back in the air.
Hey, thank you. Keep with me. I appreciate that. Now, my thoughts on that is, okay, he's talking about martial law. But with martial law, if they come in, hey, everything shuts down. Also, you got to remember this. You lose your Fourth Amendment, illegal search and seizure. Because at that point, when martial law comes in, they can do anything they want in terms of curfews, checking your vehicle out, even coming into your home if you tagged a terrorist or a street gang or the street gang organization. And so, when you deal with that, you got to be careful, because at that point we're talking about your constitutional rights, and nobody wants somebody to come in their home unannounced. Although the FBI has done that, with a secret indictment, a secret search warrant, which is a violation of your constitutional rights. But they label it as terrorists, so therefore it justifies what they do. And what I'm saying to you, we need to get educated in terms of our rights. Now, my program now is, one solution is this: that march and stuff, we should overcome. Aren't you tired? Here's what we do: you get a postcard and you write constituent complaints to the governor's office, also to the mayor's office. If you ever notice, the pen is mightier than a sword. How about a whole stack of postcards coming in inundate you in terms of you can't move because you got all this paper. That's how the culture does. They deal with the pen. When they get ready to fire you, they write you up. You stand there looking crazy, and they say, well, see, on 555, you did this. But if you come with your documentation, you can win. Carla, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? Listen, this is Steve.
Steve.
I am so glad. This is Steve. I am so glad to see you back again.
Hey, thank you.
We have truly, truly missed you.
Whoa.
I caught the beginning of you. I'm so sorry that what went on, but I'm not sorry, because this is all part of life, man.
Yeah.
Everybody always talking about why me. Well, why not?
Yeah, you heard that, right?
We're gonna go one way or the other. So the problem is we deal with it.
That's right.
And our thing, we deal with that then, so this here will be nothing.
That's what I'm saying. Thanks, Steve. That's what I'm saying.
But listen, I love your quotes. I miss your quotes. I miss those questions, and I miss those books. You used to always make us think about something. And that book that you saw, Spook Who Sat by the Door.
Right, it's dual connotations there.
60s or the early...
Right, Sam Greenlee. You know what that was about? Let me tell you about that, Steve.
Yeah.
The spook who sat by the door had dual connotations. Number one, they always, the people used to call us spooks, right? But in the spy world, a spy is called a spook. You see? So it's a double meaning there. But what it also deals with is racism. Once again, in order to be a racist, you have to have power. And you have to understand something else about power. Once a minority reaches a majority, they hate a minority. Is that racist? No, that's about power and control. Take, look here. If I'm a minority,
And you know what? Another thing I think, just like these young people out here, they power is all in the mind. They slave mentality in the mind from Jump Street. They know nobody. They don't have no youth. They just don't have no things to do or say. They are just a slave, and they slaving themselves. But I don't want to hog the show. Like I say, I love to hear you speak.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see you back. And again, trust me, what you went through, man, you were beat. Trust me, you will
yeah.
Man, I'm
But
going
I'm
to
back.
you every Friday here.
Thank you.
You take care, and let me get out so I can hear your response.
Okay. Let me just say this last thing before we close. In India, they take an elephant, put a steel chain on him, and beat him down on a consistent basis. Then one day, they take the steel chain off and put a regular rope. In that elephant's mind, he's still chained with a steel chain. Not knowing, not even trying to figure out that this is nothing but a rope I can walk away when I get ready. Been conditioned to believe that. Take that same mentality. Take the same mentality. Although your hands are free, in your mind you think it's free, you still have an imaginary ring around your head, and you still shackled. Look at what you do. It is exhibiting his behavior. Look exactly what you do and don't do when you should do. They tell you to pull yourself up by your bootstrings. You don't have any bootstrings. You're bootless. And until you realize that, you'll always be what? Somebody's slave. I ask children all the time, do you know a real man when you see one? You know a real woman when you see one? And we don't spell man or woman S-I-Z-E. We spell it by responsibility. You can haul coal in your mouth, but as long as you take care of your children, you cool. And making sure they go to school. And by the way, don't come up to school with a bandana on your head and showing your behind. You go up there to deal with your child. And don't take his side because you all have secrets. I never cease to amaze me. Little Johnny goes to school, he lies all the time, fabricates. The mother comes up with a parent-teacher conference. You know what she says? I don't know where he got that from. Now let's backtrack. Johnny and Mama's at home. Mama tells Johnny, look here, if the landlord calls, tell him I'm not home. Sure enough, the landlord calls. Johnny answers the phone. He says, oh, if you're the landlord, my mother told me to tell you she's not home. You know what? The mama can't wait for him to get off the phone so she'll beat his what? Behind. But then she'll come to school and say, look here, I don't know where Johnny got that line from. We know what? We got to stop that. You ask some children, what's the difference between a white lie and a black lie? They're gonna expound on that. No, a lie is a lie. And we need to start getting our children equipped and ready and manned to deal with that. Stop letting other people raise your children. Stop letting other people come in your neighborhood and take over because they have another agenda. And see, we wait for everybody to do everything for us. Get down for your own action. And I need to get a coalition because what I want to do now is get postcards and send them to all to your aldermen. By the way, if your alderman's not doing what he's supposed to, call in and we'll talk about it. So, I got about 1 more minute left. I just want to say thank you very much for letting us in your homes. But remember this, we have to get together and start getting these kids to vote. And that's another thing, I'm starting a voting drive. And that's the only way you get what you need. Because right now it's taxation without representation. Young people, as Martin Luther King said, the greatest problem lies in sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. You have a moral obligation to make intelligent decisions, not only for yourself, but for your children too. And that's the reason why, at this point in time, our race is second and third string. Because you know what? If we're not begging, we're not doing what we're supposed to, the children are hurting because there's no daddy in the house. There's a whole lot of things that are going wrong. But we can rectify that by all getting together. Remember, if you feel as though you run out of rope, tie a knot and hang on, everything's going to be all right. Have a great day. Peace.